Adam, do we have any non-governing board members on the call besides Lynn? I know is not quite in our group quite yet, but anybody else?
Sigh.
She counts.
She counts.
She counts. But if she's not on, that's okay.
She is on.
Oh, she is. Okay, excellent. Okay. Well, again, as before, welcome to our annual hearing covering what Maple Broadband has been up to and what we plan on doing. And we're here specifically to entertain questions and concerns from our community, which would, by its nature, include our delegates and alternates. So I guess we could certainly start now if anybody on the call would like to, has any concerns, any questions, issues, anything you'd like to do, we can certainly bring up on the screen our current documents that are in play that are subject to final release at the end of the year. So I guess I'll open the floor at this point to any questions or discussion items.
Ross has his hand up.
Ross.
Yeah, so just for clarification, this annual report is for the fiscal year or what does it cover?
It's the calendar year, which is the same as the fiscal year. So it's the calendar year 2024.
Okay, so one of the items that I thought was conspicuously missing, it had all the delegates mentioned and the officers, but it failed to mention our wonderful new treasurer, Lynn Dutton. And I'm wondering if that can be included, or is it too late to change the report?
No, it's not too late to change the report. And in fact, the purpose of this meeting under statute is to entertain comments on the report. And so at the December governing board meeting, there will be final versions of the budget and annual report for your approval. So I don't see, that's a good point, Ross. I don't see any reason why we couldn't add Lynn to that as treasurer-elect.
Yep, for the replacing Cy, who's done a great job for us up to this point. The only other item I had under leadership in the annual report, it said it's submitted by the governing board, but I think we actually select them by electing the leadership. And I just seemed the wording was kind of funny to me.
Well, the annual report is approved by the governing boards. That's what that wording was talking about, that this report is being distributed to our member municipalities by virtue of the governing board's approval. It's not saying that you wrote it, it's saying you approve it.
Right, but under leadership on the annual report there, the leadership is selected or elected or not submitted, is it?
Let me see.
I have that wrong?
Let me see. Let me see the wording you're looking at. Okay, it says, yeah, I think the intent is, as I tried to describe it, but perhaps we should clarify the wording, that it's this annual report is being distributed by the governing board of Maple Broadband. So submitted by is maybe not the most clear in that context.
Oh, because I thought it was talking about the leadership itself, not the annual report.
Nope, it's talking about, yeah. Yep, I think we can clarify the wording.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts, Ross?
No, that was it for me.
Okay. Others, comments, questions, concerns? All right, so
Steve, I've got one.
Oh, yes.
Can we have an updated number of customers as of December put out there? Because yeah. I think we're going to add some in the next month, and I'll leave it at that.
I like the sound of that. That's actually one of the slides that I will share with you. So okay. Let me take that on right now, and then we can work through it. It was kind of to your point. I think the from the perspective of Ellie and I, and maybe the executive committee, it's kind of a day-to-day work project that needs to be done, and I think some of us lose track of the fact that those numbers, subscriber numbers, are consequential. So it's very worthwhile to ask. As a matter of fact, I think the last time I was at the Regional Planning Commission meeting, Shannon had to ask me how many subscribers we had there because it just slips my mind. It just seems to not be picked up. But let's do the screen share here. Okay. So can you see that slide?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So this is kind of a preliminary update. Obviously, we're just entering November, so we still have a ways to go. This is kind of the progress snapshot as of the end of last month. And some of these numbers I just took from Ellie to help us kind of understand the expenditures that we've engaged in. We spent to date about $9.5 million of construction funds that were furnished through the American Rescue Plan. We've built out about 219 miles of fiber network in our member towns, and we have 1,703 eligible passings. Now, the distinction between eligible and total passing is every address that we pass, regardless of whether they have good service or not. And 1,703 eligible passings, those are passings that represent either unserved or underserved addresses that are part of our universal service plan. So the ones that matter, especially to our friends at the Vermont Community Broadband Board, is that eligibility numbers, because we're all pushing hard to make sure that every subscriber in our communication union district has access to sufficient broadband service. And then the final number, Hugh, is 481 subscribers. That was as of last Thursday, this previous Thursday. We've all seen this. I'm just walking you through it again to help you see what we've done to date. Phase 1, which is kind of south of Middlebury. The bright green circles there represent the areas that we have completed construction on. And then down below, phase 3, we're skipping phase 2. In fact, I'll show you phase 2. There's phase 2. And so all these green areas are areas that we've also built network in. And then phase 3, you can see down here that have a little behind those bars. 3 of those are completed. The ones down that expanded our Orwell serving areas by 3 serving areas. And I think I may have at the previous governing board meeting told you that we hoped to be done with building out Leicester at the end of last month, and we're running a little behind, but I'm confident we'll be, when we meet with you next month, we'll be able to share with you the fact that those 3 serving areas in Leicester are complete as well. This is the preliminary annual report that Ellie distributed to all of our member towns and copied all of our delegates on. And I really there's 2 parts of this that I want to touch on with you now that may also get you to thinking about questions you might have. But right now, the document, which was sent out as a preliminary document, is a 4-page document. Ellie's thinking that the finished product, which she's refining right now, may have more pages than that to add more information. But we think, or I'll speak on behalf of myself, this is a very meaty document, and it's very, very helpful if you're looking to gain an understanding of the value that we're delivering to our community. This would be a great resource for you. It's about 4 pages so far. This is the first page. This is the second page. This is the first part I wanted to call to your attention. Down there on the right side of the document, the words that are enlarged there on the right side, we have met 100% of our construction obligations, and we are also on schedule and under budget. And those of you who are in construction don't often as you'd like to hear being under budget. It's really hard to do construction and keep under budget because of cost climb and a lot of other things. So it's not inconsequential that we've gotten this done on time and under budget. And what's further demonstration of the foresight of our executive director, Ellie, is that we have sufficient funds left in our ARPA grant that though we have fulfilled our obligations to date, there's enough money in there that that Ellie approached the Vermont Community Broadband and was granted a amendment to our construction grant to give us about $500,000 more, which would equate to maybe 9 more miles built out and all funded as part of ARPA. So again, it's not that common when you go back when you're dealing with grants, as many of you are aware, where you're struggling with an imbalance between how much grant money you got and how much you have left over. But Ellie's going to do what she can to ensure that we're using every penny we can to do the productive work of construction, and then obviously leaving. I'm sure she's leaving enough margin for us for unanticipated changes and unexpected issues and whatnot. So I most importantly wanted you to see that particular one, which I think is impressive. I've dealt in construction most of my adult life, and you know, being on schedule and under budget is not a common thing.
Steve, if I could just make a small clarification on that. It
Sure.
wasn't that we weren't awarded $500,000 additional dollars. What the broadband board did was they allowed us to use excess money after we finished our obligations to continue construction. So, because what the grant said was that if we finished under budget, we had to return the money, which is certainly not what we wanted and not what they wanted either. Just wanted to make sure that was clear to everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. One other item that has been in our previous annual reports is very little mention of Whitfield and Champlain Valley Telecom, which is our operator, the ones that are providing service to our subscribers. And in this case, we've made good in correcting that by adding a page describing some of the work that WCVT has done. And I don't know that you need to read all of the enlarged text there, but if you just look at the magnitude of what they're saying they've done, they pretty much completed a significant share of Maple broadband towns that are served by WCVT. So as much as I think when we first got started and we wrote our network management agreement with WCVT, some of us were concerned that they might not keep up with us. And if you look at this, I think you can be pretty confident that if anything, they've outstripped us in terms of speed. And, and it's less important about any explanation for why that is the case, but I think it's really important for you to know that our partner, WCVT, is fulfilling their obligations in a really forthright and excellent fashion. We're very, very pleased with them, and they've done everything they can all along this process to support us. So we can't be thankful enough that our operating partner. I want to make brief mention of this, and it's really, this page is good, and it's well written, and it kind of covers what we hope to be able to accomplish. I wanted to make brief mention of the fact that circumstances have significantly changed since the election last week, and we've talked in executive committee about the change in the environment that we may be faced with, the unpredictable nature of how life might look next year. And we, on one hand, we are tightly managing at a granular level, managing what we hoped will be the case based on what we have experienced previously with our environment that we've been in. But we're also mindful of the fact that a lot could change. And so while we are telling you what we plan on doing, we all recognize that this could be changed very quickly if the environment in which we are conducting our work changes unpredictably, at which point we're going to pivot, we're going to ensure that we're not going to extend ourselves in a way that we spent money on something that is no longer viable. So rest assured that we're keeping a close watch on this. We can't say a heck of a lot more than that, except that we're going to be prepared to pivot if things change. Questions?
Steve,
Yes.
another question. On your phase 3 map, I noticed nothing in the whiting area. Did I miss something there? I saw Orwell. Is that also covering whiting?
The names that were on the map refer to the locations where hubs are installed. And
Okay.
we do not have a hub in Whiting, so it's not depicted there. But as Ellie, I'm sure, can quickly point out, we are serving addresses in Whiting as we speak.
Yep.
Thank you.
What else you got? Anyone?
Steve, I have a question about the phase 2 serving area, and it looked like on the map that you showed there was still some in red up there. Does that mean that some of that's not finished? Or did I misread it?
I'm hoping you misread it. Hold on. You said phase 3.
I said phase 2.
Oh, yeah, right. Hold on. Yeah, so the area shown in red there. Where are we? Where did I put it? These areas are set aside for construction as part of what I'm starting to call phase 4. So if the world works as we all hope it will, we will soon be applying for BEAD grant, and at some point in the early part of next year, as all goes as we hope it will, we will receive a grant. We'll be awarded a grant to do more build out work. And when we receive that grant, these red areas, among other areas, will be part of our construction plans. So everything is in green shown has our network in it, and those red areas do not. As a matter of fact, this is not quite accurate because this was kind of red before because we had some extra construction to do. So if I'd been paying attention, I would have made this little red thread along here green as well. Does that help, Adam?
Yes, thank you.
And Adam, the most up-to-date place to see where we actually have active network and where we don't yet and what the reasons are is our website, where if you click on service availability, it takes you to a page that has maps. Because even within that, there are certain areas that we haven't been able to build because they're not eligible under grant funds, or that we've chosen not to build because for a variety of reasons that we are going to fill in under BEAD or other funding.
Thank you.
So I'm thinking, Ellie, that, well, I don't know. What does everyone think? We're only, we're 23 minutes into our hearing. What's the group think about convening our actual governing board meeting and deferring until 5:30 any approval items like our previous minutes? How's that sound to everyone? Okay, let's do that then. We're going to continue leaving our hearing open for another 6 minutes in case others join late and have questions or concerns. But we will now begin our governing board meeting with a call to order. The time is 5:24 p.m. We'll skip over approving the agenda, and we will skip over approving the minutes for now. And we will give one more opportunity for public comments. We just kind of are doing that right now, but is anyone else on the call that would like to offer any comments, public comments? Okay. Chair report. Well, I just did the chair report, so we don't need to do that. Ellie, I'm going to take a crack at updates, and then I'll probably leave some things that have not, I didn't cover, and if you catch me, I would appreciate it, and then we'll pass it off to you to talk about marketing, public relations. As described in some of those graphics, we are busy actively wrapping up our major construction down in the Leicester area, which we expect to have complete very soon. Currently, we expect to have all splicing related to that area completed. That's what's just next Wednesday, or this coming Wednesday, tomorrow. And assuming that is done, then we will work with WCVT to light up that hub that's in Leicester, so that we will then have an active network presence in Leicester. And at that point, we will begin to we'll add on subscribers whenever we have an interest on the part of our communities. That's kind of the big one. I think the other item that I think I want to have Ellie to talk a little bit about is that we do have other construction work that we want to do. It doesn't necessarily fall into the phase 1, 2, 3 category, but they're kind of picking up open items that that can be done, and that will continue. I don't know. We expect until it's going to be ineffective for our contractor, our cabling contractor, to be working up in the poles and whatnot. But for now, I think we're going to continue to do that. So with that, Ellie, if you could expand, if appropriate, on some of the other kind of pickup type work that we're doing now.
Yeah, there's a little bit of buried work that we want to do before the end of the year, before the ground freezes. Most of that is in the town of Shoreham. And there's a little bore that we need to do up in Waltham to be able to get to a private road where there's aerial. We put up the aerial months ago, but we needed to do the buried work to be able to get to it. And then we have a couple of utility poles we're placing in Shoreham to be able to get to a farm that's not currently connected. But that's about it. So just, Steve, I think you covered the rest of it. I have nothing else to add.
Right. So, I think we had told you before that it's going to be a quiet period for us. If all goes as we hope it will, we will continue to be dealing with quiet periods, which is to a large degree going to be about preparing. And in the case of Ellie, she's taking the lead in making a BEAD application, and also respond to any queries regarding the BEAD application. I think that's going to be a significant share of the time that she'll be consuming between now and maybe the first quarter or the second quarter of next year. So I think we will continue to have governing board meetings to keep you posted on progress, but we're probably not going to have a heck of a lot to tell you in terms of construction progress per se. Ellie, marketing and public relations.
Sure. Sorry, I was looking at the BEAD to see if I could find the updated schedule. Marketing public relations. So I think there's two big news items here. One is that the December board meeting will be interesting, not only because we'll be putting forth the final budgets and annual reports for vote and approval, but also that we will be presenting the new marketing plan. So London Middlebury has finished doing the research that they've been doing, and they're busy now consolidating that, synthesizing it, and working on a draft series of recommendations. So I'll be working with them, and we'll be taking the first draft to the executive committee. Basically, I'll be working with them throughout the remainder of this month, the next couple of weeks, and then with the Thanksgiving holiday. And then we'll be taking it to the executive committee the first week in December, and then presenting to the governing board the next week, the second week in December. So I'm excited about that, and the timing happens to work out really well, lining up with our end of year and with our budget process. So I will not give any previews because I have asked not to have them anyway. I want to be surprised with their recommendations, although I think some of them will probably not be a surprise when we actually see them. They'll be sort of obvious in retrospect, or things we've been talking about for a long time, but not only what we should be doing, but how we should be doing it. And so that's the first bit of news. And the second bit of news is there are a couple of things that the executive committee approved last week, Thursday. So the first one in these, one came from London Middlebury, and one was an idea that I had that I saw from another ISP in another part of the country. So the first one is all of our existing customers, we're going to be sending them a thank you card, which is basically a voucher for, we haven't figured out the details yet, but basically it's a free coffee voucher at a local coffee shop. And the idea is that we would only pay for vouchers that are consumed. So we'll send it out to all of our current customers, and maybe half of them will take it up. But It's just a thank you for being a customer and helping to create more local ties, because some of the feedback they heard is that even though people understand that we're a local organization, they don't necessarily really feel that local touch in their interactions with us. And so we want to work to improve that, and this is one way to do that. And the second, this one is potentially even more exciting. So go tell your friends. We're working on the details now of the promotional plan, but we are going to be offering a $50 donation. Maple Broadband will donate $50 to a local food shelf, and we're going to try and make it as local as we possibly can to the town of the subscriber, for either anyone who upgrades their speed before the end of the year or anyone who signs up before the end of the year. And the payments for signups will only happen after the installation, after they've paid their first bill. It's kind of the fine print. So it's a bit of a holiday promo because this is the holidays, and we understand that not everyone is unfortunately able to afford having nice meals for the holidays. But hunger is not only a holiday event. And so in practice, if people have buried conduits or whatnot, we may not be doing those payments to the food shelves until the spring. But if anything, that's probably a good thing because it spreads out the impact of this. So pretty excited about this. We'll see what the results are.
Yeah, the food shelf program, which I think is great for a lot of reasons, because we want to kind of constrain how it's applied. As it stands right now, we're calling it a pilot program, and as it stands, it'll end at the end of the year, subject to decisions by our executive committee and governing board if we want to expand it or continue it. Okay, before we move on to the next one, we did talk about construction and didn't invite questions, and we're also asking for questions about marketing and public relations. So if there's any questions or concerns about either of those items. Okay. Financial.
Steve,
Oh,
you skipped BEAD.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You want to talk about BEAD, Ellie?
You skipped BEAD. So I have very little to say on BEAD. I think you covered a lot of it earlier. There is obviously significant uncertainty right now about lots of things, including BEAD. But until we have other plans, we're proceeding with our understanding of the situation. So the big news is that the VCBB published their draft RFP, which is the revision, which includes their whatever edits they've made based on the public comments submitted by Maple Broadband and Vacuda and others. That was released, I think it was Friday night. I've opened it and had a glance, but I haven't read through it in extreme detail yet. They are having a training on Friday of this week, and then they're having a office hours Q&A next week, and I think there's another training later. I have them all on my calendars, but the point of the matter is that this is a milestone to receive the final request for applications, and I'm sure it's not a perfect document. There is no such thing. I'm sure there's some things that are still unclear. And so that's the point of the trainings and the office hours, is to make sure that we get as much clarity as we can on any items that remain unclear. So that's that.
Ellie, there was one thing I found in the documentation that sounded promising, and I know it had been an item of your concern. Under the way that it's written, I believe that once we are awarded BEAD, there are some materials we can purchase before we receive funds. I don't want to go beyond that until you tell me that I'm on track.
That is actually one of the items that I wish was more clear, Steve. There's some wording in there which basically says there's, as we've discussed this before, if we are successful in our BEAD application, then before we actually get to the actual paperwork that says, yes, you're the grantee and here's the terms, and before we get any money, we can decide to spend money towards that grant as long as we understand that the expenses will be reimbursed. And so one of the questions we had is, what is the earliest date for pre-award expenditures is the technical term. So if you get your awards October 1st, but you know you're going to be getting the award in May, can you start spending money from May? And so it was sort of half answered, and it said that it wasn't as clear as it could have been, but it seemed to imply that the submission date of the grant application was the earliest possible date for reimbursement, but it didn't actually go as far as to say that those expenses would be reimbursed. So that's one of the items I want to make sure is crystal clear so that we understand what that is.
Yeah, the part that caught my eye, I'm glad you said all that, Ellie, was that what got my attention was that they gave a limited list of what they thought might apply for items that could be pre-purchased, and one of them was called equipment. And the kind of the long view on what happens if the world goes the way we hope it will. Once we're awarded the BEAD grant, we're not going to be alone. There's going to be people across the country that will all be awarded BEAD grants at the same time, and they'll all be clamoring for equipment and cable at the same time. There's going to be a huge amount of demand for what's probably could easily be less material than might be available in the marketplace. And a particular concern for us as part of our BEAD construction plans for 2025 is to kind of complete our broad approach towards building out our CUD, which means building out Middlebury and Ripton. And those represent the final two towns that we currently don't have coverage in. So in my ideal world, once we know that we can, and we're not putting ourselves at risk by doing so, one of the things that I'm going to be approaching Ellie and our executive committee about is putting in an order right away for two network hub cabinets in support of those two towns. So there's a lot between now and then, but if we're able to order that equipment right away, then the prospects would be improved that we wouldn't be waiting for 2 years to get the stuff that we need. Great. Ellie, anything else on BEAD?
Not at this time.
Okay. Oh, you know what? It's now past the 5:30 mark. Let's circle back real quick. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda, which has already mostly been done, but I'll entertain a motion. Do we have a motion from Paul? Second? Second, anyone? We got one from Nancy. We have a second from Nancy. All in favor of approving the agenda, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. And then heading down to minutes, October 8 minutes. They've been out in the field for a while. Hopefully you have seen them and had a chance to review them. I'll entertain a motion to approve the October 8 governing board meeting minutes. We have a motion from Paul. We have a second. Oh, we got a second from Ross. Okay, and any comments on that? Any issues? Oh, you got something, Ross?
Yeah, just a small thing under operating report, item 6, item A. It has Ellie noted that Maple Broadband currently served about 448 customers. It's kind of past tense. I'm just wondering if we want to maybe say Maple Broadband currently serves and make it more.
Yeah, sure. Great, thanks. Anything else for us?
That's it.
I had a comment. Lynn Dunton's last name was misspelled in the minutes, so I've corrected that, but wanted to note that for the record.
Great, thank you, everyone. So let's see, we're finished discussing that. So everyone, did we vote on the?
Nope, we haven't voted yet. Still taking comments.
Okay. Well, we've got the comments out in, and there are no other comments. So all in favor of approving the minutes, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you, everyone. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Excellent, thanks, everyone. Where were we? Back to financial dashboard. Is that a side item?
I can share it. Give me a moment. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
Sorry, the light on my screen is really bright. Okay. So, Sai, would you like to cover this first tab as usual?
Sure.
For Lynn's edification, since she hasn't enjoyed the reading of said dashboard prior to this, basically we created this, Lynn, so that we could keep track of our grant cash position, and it kind of expanded from there to see how we were doing with budget versus actual and how our operations are going. But the front page is still just looking at our grant money. And we're in very good shape. The one thing I will note for you that is in the BEAD subrecipient grant, both Ellie and I missed the fact that they had made one additional payment back in August, which we hadn't put in. So if any of you noticed that there was a great leap in what we had received, it's because there was a plus or minus $69,000 payment that they made in August that we finally managed to get onto the front page here, so you can see where we stand. And all things considered, our cash position at the end of the year estimated is a good one, which just sort of confirms that we have been careful with our funds and have done as much as we possibly can with them. Does anybody have any questions about any of the specifics that you see here?
I just have one comment for you. Is you'll see that the cash on hand for construction is now $20,000, so it's up from a negative. So that's good.
Yes, they paid us, and they still owe us a little bit more. So
They still
that
have
should
their
be coming along.
650,000 or so.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to click over to the budget versus actual? Yeah. So what pleases me in looking at the budget versus actual is that, I mean, we did kind of update our numbers based on how things were going as of July, but you can see that there are very few places where we are not well aligned with those updated figures. And it just speaks well to Ellie's paying very close attention to what's going on and leads us into the fiscal year 25 budget in really good shape. What I think will probably become of import as we go along is looking at our operations costs. I mean, should anything sort of change in the world based on Washington and who knows what might happen, looking at our operational costs versus our operational income. But we talked about it at our executive committee meeting last week, and really, if we have to survive to pay our bills and manage our subscribers with our operational income, we should be in reasonably good shape. And quite honestly, if we kind of have to sit back and wait on construction, then there are other places that we're not going to see numbers that are as big as we had anticipated. So all in all, right now, we're on relatively steady ground. And these figures are, again, as I say, I think we're in very good shape for almost every category, which is great. Ellie, did you have any specifics that you wanted to speak to?
No, not really.
Nope. Okay. Any questions about that? Did anyone see anything that looked odd? All right. So then operations. Again, most of these numbers are in really good shape, and I'll be very interested to see how our sort of holiday promotion and talking to our current customers goes to see if we're already kind of ahead of in many ways where we needed to be with our product mix, but if we can bump some of our 50/50s up to 100/100s or 100/100s up to 1,000/1,000s, then that'll switch these numbers around again, and that'll be good for us. Absolutely good for us. So we'll play it out and see what happens. But in in a broad overview, again, the operations, I think, will support almost all of our operational expenses should we get into any challenges, especially with BEAD grants and construction issues. Again,
One
Elliot,
comment.
do you have, yep.
It looks like your variance on line 33, the formula must be off or something because it's not showing the variance correctly.
Oh, that could be,
Yep.
Ross.
Yep, looks like you're right.
This is
Thank
the
you. I'll
page I
fix
let
that.
Ellie do.
I'll fix that after the meeting. Good catch.
Yep, thank you.
The one thing I did want to call out on this page is the active subscribers at the end of the month was 475. We're a little higher now, but we're approaching 500, which is another big milestone for us. And yeah, every additional subscriber is that much closer to operational break even at our current spend without having to reduce operating expenses.
I think those are all the basic, what I would consider to be highlights. Does anyone have any other questions about the dashboard? All right.
All right, thank you, Sai.
Ellie, audit update.
You mean Sai?
We can both talk about the audit update.
Oh, it's the audit.
We're right now we're down to the last couple of things that are shooting off to the auditor, I would say within the next couple of days. Our biggest challenge at this point is that she's going to go on vacation, but she knows that we would like to have our audit at least in its reasonably final, albeit draft form, before this month is over, so that we can do any tweakies to it, so that we can present you all with a final review of an audit at your December meeting. We just have a schedule of assets to send to her, and I think and some journal entry schedules for her, so that they can put in the last batch of figures. But everything else, as far as we all know at the moment, is done. So that's the plan. We'll see how it goes with vacation plans jumping into the midst of it. And the treasurer update, we don't have to update anymore because we have a new treasurer.
I suppose that's true. We could say that Sai and I are meeting with Lynn on Friday. And just because obviously we have a new treasurer, but we still need to bring her up to speed. We don't want to just drop her in head first or feet first, see if she can swim. So
I thought I would just give her my computer and let it go. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So officially, is Lynn's first day January 1? Is that what we're thinking?
It.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's a biggie for us. As much as the auditor doesn't necessarily spend 40 hours a week on the job, her involvement ensures, or that person's involvement ensures, that we're above board and behaving responsibly.
Exactly.
Anything else under financial before we move on to other business?
Don't think so.
Okay, thank you. There may be items that you want to talk about, governing board, that we haven't mentioned or not on the agenda. This other item is your opportunity to ask questions or express concern or anything like that. So I certainly don't have any other business to conduct, and I don't believe Ellie does either. So if there's anything on your mind you'd like to chat about, go at it. We're here for you. Don't you love it when we get our meetings done in time? Nancy.
I think Nancy is waving her hand.
Hi, I just want to say that remind us all that through no fault of ours, we still haven't figured out how to be able to offer a subsidy for people who would find it very difficult to afford the service that we're providing. And I just want to say that we are still committed to figuring that out. We We have been at times hopeful that the federal government would restore the Affordable Connectivity Program subsidies. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with that, but we are still committed to figuring it out. I don't know, Ellie, if you want to say anything more about that, but that I just wanted to make sure it was still on the radar.
Yep, I agree with you, Nancy. I think it is something important, and there's, yeah, I'm not going to speculate about what may or may not happen with the federal government.
Right. Anything else on your mind that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I have something. Ellie, you mentioned an operational break even, and I know that tends to be a goal that's hard to pin down, but do you have a ballpark for what that might be in terms of subscribers?
I presented that last month. I think I'll double check my number, but it depends on what assumptions you have around how full-time the executive director is, because we understand that in the future, when the network is completely built, this is not going to need a full-time executive director, maybe a half-time or third-time. I don't know. So with someone at my current timing, we're looking at, I think, 875, and with about a half-time, we're looking at about 650.
All right, thanks.
It's kind of just at a high level, and we may have talked about this before, but the way Maple Broadband looks right now is different than the way we're going to look in 10 years. We're a construction focused organization, an accountability focused organization, and then once we've completed our universal service plan, we will be doing pretty much just oversight. And we have several hands raised now.
Zapata was first.
Zapata, then Ross.
Yeah, I have just a quick question because I only joined, well, a few months ago. But if you have multiple providers in an area, so I'm thinking like Virgins or the Middlebury area where you might have Fidium or HughesNet or, other options. If that service is already coming to your house, can somebody become a subscriber to Maple Broadband?
If we have service to that same address, there's nothing stopping someone switching from one to another.
And is there any marketing campaign to try and make that happen?
So I think you probably missed when I said that our marketing firm is working on our, as you know, they've done market research over the last couple of months, and they're busy synthesizing that and working on a marketing plan with me by the end of this month to present to Executive Committee Governing Board next month. So, but that's absolutely part of it, is that we have service, we're competing with other people. We're actually the upstart, and we're trying to get people to switch from the incumbent. And so a key part of the marketing strategy is what messaging is going to work to do that, to raise awareness, number one, and to get people to switch to us, number two, especially when we're not necessarily the low-cost option. Because even though we do have all this grant money, we do not have, we've built the most difficult and expensive areas, and we have neither the balance sheet nor the profitable areas with which to cross-subsidize lower rates that our competitors do. So basically, in a price war, we're always going to lose, and even at normal pricing, we are, as far as I'm aware, we're more expensive than both of our fiber competitors right now.
Okay, thank you.
Ross, was it?
Yeah. So Ellie, I think I heard you mention that the executive director position over time will be less responsibility and less work and less hours. So that brings the question to my mind, because to put it mildly, I think you've been a really great asset for Maple Broadband, and I guess I'm worried that if your amount of work is cut significantly and there is a potential for less income, are you financially able to stay with Maple Broadband, or will you be needing to do something else?
Well, that's a question for far down the road. Well, maybe not that far down the road, Ross. My commitment to Maple Broadband is to stay through the build, or unless and until circumstances indicate that it's not in the best interest of the organization for me to be here. And then after that, I think we're going to have to see, because to Steve's point, if the build is done and what's required is oversight, perhaps maybe I stay on in some sort of a part-time role and do other work elsewhere, or perhaps we find someone else to do that and I remain on the governing board and maybe the executive committee. I think that I'm personally, I'm not thinking that far out, and because I don't really see the point in planning that far out. I'm not sure that makes you feel any better or not, but I'm obviously quite dedicated to the district, and I was a dedicated volunteer before I came on board as staff, as Steve and Nancy and others, can attest to. So I'm not planning to leave Maple Broadband in the lurch.
Ellie has a lot of career ahead of her, and I don't think anybody should expect her to remain focused on Maple Broadband if she wants to seek further professional development. That'd be the last thing any of us want. So my expectation is that, and the other thing is, we have no expectation that Ellie's going to stay in Vermont. She may well have that intention, but if she gets an offer someplace else, she may not even leave the state. So those are things we can't even contemplate. It's a lot like thinking about what might happen in 2025. It could be good, it could be bad, but I think we just right now, I share your observation, Ross. We are extremely grateful for Ellie's involvement. Her level of detail that she focuses on, all the work she does, is just key to our success to date, and we couldn't be happier with her work. So, but in the same token, if she's done with overseeing the dangerous part of it, the construction part, which has got a lot of variabilities that you've got to keep track of, once a lot of that stuff is done, I wouldn't want Ellie to be bored. I think we should continue to encourage her to stimulate herself and grow and learn as a professional.
Thank you, Steve. Leslie had her hand up, but she took it down. I'm not sure if she.
Well, yeah, hi. I did take it down. I was going to withdraw the question because maybe it's not a good question, but Zapata was talking about whether people can switch or not, but they would still obviously have an install fee, right, of $150.
Yes.
Right. Okay. As a marketing ploy, would that be smart to encourage people to switch by waiving that?
We have talked about that, and I think that that's one of the things on the table, because there's two sides to it. I mean, yes, we can get people to switch, but as you may or may not know, that installation fee that we charge is only a small portion of the amount that we are charged. And so in some ways, a very bad thing to happen would be for us to install a bunch of customers and waive the installation fee, and then they decide that they don't actually like our service and they go back. Because then we're actually, it takes us about 2 years, I think, is the number, to be able to get back up to zero, to be able to recover the capital cost of paying for someone's connection fee. And so it's really important that the subscribers that we get are subscribers who are going to stick around. So having said that, I mean, to Nancy's point, one of the things that if we had a way to qualify low income people, we would certainly be waiving installation fees for people who are eligible. And maybe I don't want to presume what ideas London Middlebury might have around that, because we're aware that even for middle income people, sometimes just an emotional barrier, and people who might be long-term subscribers are just put off by the installation fee. So maybe we'll experiment with it. I don't know.
But we've also talked about looking at taking that subscriber or the installation fee and breaking it into smaller chunks so that someone can pay it out over time, as long as you commit to a year's worth of Maple Broadband. Then maybe we divide that up and it just becomes part of the monthly bill over X amount of time, just to make it less of a monster hit on that first bill that you get.
Right, instead of a lump sum.
Yeah, at least we don't charge you a modem rental for $10 a month forever. Not like any of our competitors do that, do they? No, I'm sure they don't.
I have another question too. On one of the previous slides, it talked about delinquent accounts, and I think it said something, I can't remember what the number was, but there was another row that was people who have left Maple Broadband. And that was, I thought, a little bit high, and only some of them gave a reason.
So
Are they the same, delinquent and people who have left? Are some of them the same?
no, they're not the same. So delinquent is anyone who is behind in their payment. And then we have another row, which is delinquent accounts that are greater than 30 days. Because one of the things that we talked about is a lot of people, their first bill is big. It has the installation fee, it has the pro rata for the month in which they were installed, it has the first month. And then also some people, they struggle to find their first bill. There's an email that came into the info account because someone, she said, like, I know I'm in arrears. I don't know how to find my bill. I please help me.
That would be the first month too. I had that issue as well.
Yeah. So that second row, the number of delinquent accounts greater than 30 days, is a good one to track. And at the moment, that's sitting at 1. And the previous month, it was 3. The row below is total disconnections. And that one's a little bit hard because that number goes up if we disconnect someone and then they pay up and we put them back on and then they disconnect again. It keeps going up. I'm trying to work with WCVT, but frankly, it's not a super high priority. I've got a lot of other things going on, as you guys know, to try and improve the granularity around our understanding of disconnection so that we can get a better sense. I think as of now, the really important number is how much bad debt we've actually written off when they've said this person is absolutely not coming back. And that amount is tiny. I mean, I feel like it's like 1 or 2 subscribers forever. Does that sound right to you, Sai?
Yeah, at this point, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of subscribers, but as a percentage, it's teensy. It's great.
Because the number that we got from EC Fiber based on their experience was 3% of revenues we should budget for bad debt. And that's what I did the first year. And this year, I mean, for next year, I took it down to 2% because we're seeing nowhere near that. So it's not great that we have delinquent accounts. It's not great that sometimes people get disconnected and they realize that we're serious, that if they don't pay, then they're not going to be able to have service. But at the end of the day, we're essentially a utility, right? So you have to pay your bills. And we have had very little actual churn and bad debt write-off, which is good news. Good question, though. Thank you.
What else you got? We want our governing board to be informed, as well informed as possible. I think the other thing is too, that if there's something maybe you're not ready to ask or you're not comfortable with asking in front of a whole bunch of other people, we all have email addresses. They're all accessible. All of that information is posted on our website. If you have questions of Ellie, Ellie at maplebroadband.net, Steve at maplebroadband.net, etc. So anytime you have questions, rest assured, the more transparency we deliver to you, the more comfortable you'll be with the work we're doing. Anything else from anyone? We're going to get done about half an hour early. We truly do need another delegate from Whiting. We've had this conversation for years. We did have a delegate for only a few months until that person passed away. But we really, the greater that our delegates and alternates are informed, the greater support that they're going to be prepared to deliver. So if any of you know anyone in Whiting that might be willing to consider, if you would approach them, or if you could at least do introductions, Ellie and I would be happy to reach out to them to talk about what's involved. It's not that big an engagement for our delegates and alternates. Really, it's just do your level best to attend every meeting every month. The rest of it's all gravy. If you want to volunteer to do more than that, we'd love to hear from you too. Okay. Next meeting, December 10. We'll have a lot to share with you at that point. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Thanks a lot, folks. Enjoy your evening, and we'll talk to you in about a month.
Night
Good
all.
night.
Good night, everyone.